of the United States. I do want to shift gears and talk about her mother, because I was quite stunned by your assertion that she was involved in the MK Ultra program, and yet that to me seemed to be the only thing that made sense, because she seemed to be sort of infiltrating the civil rights movement. And I'm going, what is this alleged brilliant scientist doing, constantly involving herself in civil rights protests and making friends with these individuals? And because I'm well read on the MK Ultra program, I recognize the connection there. Can you speak about what she did, or what you are alleging she did? Yeah.
Well, the first thing, look at first base, you got to understand that the Pollen clan, they were like clerks, judges, spies for the British when India was a British colony. And Miss Kamala was born when it was still a British colony. So the rest of the country was up in arms fighting against the British, but they were very, very loyal to the British intelligence service and police service in India. So this is how they all got ahead, by catering to the British. And that enabled Shyamala Gopalan, when she was, after she got her degree in Madras, India, to enter UC Berkeley, which is not the cheapest school in the universe, nor is California a really inexpensive place to go. It's one of the most expensive places. I know. I went to school there. It's very expensive there. She worked at the monkey lab there. She was into it's a real strange combination of psychology and simian studies and zoology. Okay, and she was an expert, training monkeys and all that. And Madras is an area, her hometown, where there's a lot of monkeys running around the Hindu temples and all that. And so she's very familiar and very good with them. And she ran the theory of, and this was a time of Jane Goodall. There's a huge boom of women who work with apes. Okay, there were ape programs set up all across the United States and England and Europe out of excitement.
Fact. And then some of her family members who are Jewish in Canada said the exact same thing. Like, we all feel like she's trying to hide the Jewish aspect, which is quite strange. The other thing that alarms me about what you're saying, though, is for Shmala to engage in this and to engage in what can only be described as program as human torture, to see if you could basically set a human being to set a human being to zero, and fill them with whatever you wanted to do, turn them into robots. And there is an aspect of Kamala that feels as though she herself has been brainwashed. And I vividly recall her relative who I spoke to saying that far from the depictions of her relationship with her mother that she gives to the public today, her mother was militant, is what he said. Her mother was absolutely militant with her children, and she now makes it seem as though she had this flowery childhood. So you have this woman who, for work, is engaging in this psychiatric torture of citizens from around the world, and then you hear from her family member that she was militant with her children. And then I watch Kamala's behavior today, and it seems like she is a blank slate in which she allows every personality to fill. Like, she can be Jamaican yesterday, she can be Hispanic tomorrow, she can act like a black preacher as she's just done. And that terrifies me in a sense. It's almost as though Kamala herself has been brainwashed. What do you think about that?
Oh, absolutely. You got to understand, her mother had to take care of these patients. They're her treasure. That's her ride. That's her income. She was able to buy a house with all that, and a pretty damn good house in Montreal. But her problem is she couldn't take care of her daughters. She's so much with the patients, so she had to regimen them, and she did with the techniques that she knew. They were basically MK Ultra light. Let's say MK Ultra light rather than the whole treatment. Okay.
Yeah.
And that accounts for her weird speech patterns, or her sort of bizarre eye movements and body movements, or jerky stuff. That's just straight like these MK Ultra guys that you will meet. Like that one super soldier I met. He's perfectly normal over beer, and suddenly he'd go into his crazy, jerky fits where it could be dangerous. He could kill you, So, that's basically the same as Kamala. Again, she had a lighter version of it. That she not the whole hog. They didn't send her. They didn't send her to Syria, to kill a bunch of jihadists or anything. But she has definitely been touched by that. And her sister also. She was another one, Maya. She was one of the three main campaign advisors to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
Right.
So they were placed there sort of as controllers. And look at Hillary, what happened to her? From a sort of a goofy person into a robotic person.
Right.
Same thing. The program continued, and her sister was the minder. She had been through the program, and somehow they got Hillary into the program. Scary stuff what they were doing,
yeah.
And the scary stuff is after that program in Montreal and the congressional investigation in the USA by Congress, the whole thing disappeared off the face of the earth. We didn't get these glimmers after that, We know that big Seattle Anti-World Trade Organization protest by the labor unions. And my ex-wife was a member of the Culinary Workers Union in San Francisco. She was up there. She said, a bunch of these crazy guys from Canada wearing masks. There were these small, short guys, and then the big, tall guys came throwing rocks at us, hurling rocks at us like crazy guys. And while the tall guys watched. And I told her back then, those are some of the MK Ultra patients. And the tall guys are the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, keeping an eye on them.
That's just unbelievable. And it's funny that you bring up her sister.
In the late 80s, so the program cranked on, but they found, instead of just murdering people, probably this Black Lives Matter thing also. You had all these very weird people coming in and starting a lot of trouble, violence.
Oh, yeah.
Where most of the protesters were they're just laid back hippies,
Yeah.
So I think that was another MK operation too, especially when the rioting was going on. It was 4 days of rioting or something, burned up properties, killed a bunch of people.
Oh, there was no question that was a Fed operation. I mean, when I observed it, it had all of the aspects.
The thing is, you look at Portland, Oregon, and you look at Minneapolis, close to the Canadian border. Close to the Canadian border for these operatives to come down.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, and it was just amazing. The police just couldn't arrest these people. They just couldn't make it happen. But then January 6th, they're suddenly able to identify every single person who attended. And so you really understood that the government was involved, because when they want to capture people, they certainly do. And when they don't, they certainly don't. And it's interesting you bring up her sister Maya, because very recently I was able to determine how strange it is that her daughter, which is a young woman named Demina Harris, has no father. And what I mean by that, and we just keep seeing this happen, is that she had a child allegedly when she was a teenager, and there's no father on the birth certificate, and nobody knows who the father is. And we have been kind of obsessed with, on this podcast, with this recent recognition that it appears as though they're breeding politicians. They all have this very shady background. Everything you're speaking about reminds me of the Emmanuel Macron upbringing and his story and all of the strange aspects. And he's married to a person who lived as a man for 30 years. And the entire state is colluding to gaslight the public on this fact, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. All of the evidence pointing to the fact that Emmanuel Macron is married to a man who at best committed statutory rape against him when he was a teenager. And so we're seeing this program sort of writ large across society, and it's difficult to communicate to people who are still asleep and who still hold this faith that this process that's happening is above board and democratic, and that we're truly a republic, and not that there is sort of this hand that is maneuvering behind the scenes to elect certain politicians to essentially fulfill their sadistic aims.
You're absolutely right. It's Franken politics is what it is. We've got a bunch of brain dead maniacs taking orders, and you wonder what they did to Joe Biden. He's so dependent on his teleprompter and that the wire they've got inside of him, that they seem to be able to take all sorts of people under. As far as Maya's kid, well, it's Willie Brown's a pretty tough guy, man. So it could be, Daddy Willie.
Wow.
Willie was alone in this like 20-story apartment in San Francisco. And he likes to pick the fruit. Like I said, he likes to pick the contenders. The next successful black female political hero out of San Francisco, Willie Brown's got to put the tap on her.
My goodness.
Surprise him is good old Uncle Willie. Yeah?
I do want to also ask you, by the way, since we're talking about Kamala and her relationships and this kind of open secret that, I mean, there really is no other way to say it, but she slept her way to her position of power. It was handed power. This was not a meritocracy in San Francisco. This was whether you were in with the mafia or out with the mafia. But you had mentioned in your piece that Kamala was previously married, and that is rather explosive. You said that she was married to a Canadian Brit and that you remember seeing the marriage vividly.
About 10 years ago, I saw the article. I always don't know if I see Kamala in the news, I always take note of it. But I was just reading it on an airplane or something. So I couldn't steal the magazine. And I read, she was married to a Canadian Brit guy, happily married and living in Montreal, and
Stick it in deeper.
Hey, I just gotta say this. I know y'all probably been seeing it.
I don't think that Kamala Harris is an honest person.
Yeah, she comes out to Beyonce's Freedom. Freedom. And
The simple fact that you find anything in common with a witch, with a woman who was charged in court with practicing extreme witchcraft. That's your theme music? That crazy. Then you bring another.
The demon spotted behind Kamala Harris.
Look at the woman right here next to Kamala. Watch your eyes. Watch it. Watch it. Here it comes. Oh my God.
The demon spotted behind Kamala Harris.
Look at the woman right.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. What a warm Texas mother.
This woman did not grow up middle class. Her mother's family was extraordinary wealthy, and her father's.
Now, folks, understand this Kamala Harris situation we are in here. And I mean, it's very important for me to bring this up because we are the one that summons for her. Now, anybody that been here so-called in the conscious community, if you watch the last I said before, I probably said Obama second term, okay? We black people, literally, we was given all the energy to the Indian practice. You find a shitload of our people in the conscious community was involved with Lakshmi, was involved with Durga, was involved with Swasati, you find people involving in these practice as we were supposed to deal with what we have here, we call Zemiyaya, we call voodoo. Remember, the capital of voodoo in America is Louisiana. So for black American, this was your shit. This is your roots, okay? That's your shit. Now, as we in the Caribbean, we call it Zemiyaya, we call it Obia, we call it Haitian voodoo. We always have our shit. But now I'm just saying this, it was a craze, it was a switch in Obama's second term that all of our so-called black leaders, these so-called spiritualists from all of their asses, they was all urging people to practice and do shit. Now let me say this so you understand. Yes, Hinduism were black people. When you talk about Dravidians, I understand that. They were black. Matter of fact, the real people, like the Hindu people, the Hindustan people, they come from Ethiopia, okay? So the real roots of all the people from India, they come from Ethiopia. via Sri Lanka, then they move all the way to the area you call India today. So these folks are Ethiopian African. Don't get me wrong. But like I always stress this out because a lot of people don't get it. When you deal with spirituality, it don't have to do with your skin color. It don't have to do with your background. It has to do with what? Location. Let me say this shit again. Okay?
Nobody's talking about the fact that old
career.
Vice President Kamala Harris delivered her last speech of this campaign to a crowd of...
I am confident that when people look...
I saw this video on TikTok.
For some reason, I believe the Anunnaki once...
Now look at this.
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles...
Now this gonna scare some people. Ain't nothing black around her. Her family that she goes home to don't look nothing like her. Her real last name, she won't use it during this campaign because it would throw off a whole bunch of voters that are of color and all like that. She won't use her last name that she's married into or whatever. It's hard for me to support any fake shit. Somebody, now this gonna scare some people.
Been told again and again that we cannot vote.
Officially, when you're sworn in, have you...
Well, I think culture is... It is a reflection of our moment and our time. Present culture is the way we express how we're feeling about the moment. And we should always find times to express how we feel about the moment that is a reflection of joy, because, you know...
After hiding Harris all fall, Democrats...
Do you view it as at least a partial victory? If you have a Republican...
Yep.
Do you view it as at least a partial victory?
Some people within them...
Let's be clear, I trust no one.
A big fat liar. Kamala's a big fat liar. Liar, liar.
You have no doubt that
When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
within a month, let's say, if not sooner, gay couples will be allowed in California to get married.
And we are joined today by full career.
Surprising new poll out of Iowa. It shows Vice President...
Been told again and again.
This is Kamala Harris.
Way in the spirit into the...
Now, folks, understand...
of doing this.
See, this is all possible because you got to understand the relationship to Near Eastern Jews, the Sassoon family, who ran the opium trade in China, turned China into the sick man of Asia. Nearly every Chinese was addicted. Remember that in the late 19th century? And so you have that Near Eastern Jewish element combined with this Chinese financing of her campaign. Okay. And Shanghai, right? I'm very familiar with Shanghai, and unfortunately, I have very, very good media friends in China. In fact, one of them died recently, who told me, the Shanghai Party Committee, the most powerful group in China, they're not full Chinese. They're descendants of Chinese Jews, of the opium, of the Sassoon's opium business. Okay? So if you got to understand that Chinese, Middle East Jewish connection to control the world's money and also to control the world's drugs. That's how you control the money. That's what the Harris-Walz campaign is all about. Those are the people behind it.
Wow. Well, I can tell you that this conversation...
This is not some small crime network. This is about global power. And what they're running now is that the United States is the sick man of the Americas.
Yeah, we are.
To hell, just what they did to China to break Chinese power. It was a powerful empire, very wealthy.
That is my fear, is that if she gets into power, it is game over, lights off for America. And that's why
This is really scary.